One, two, three, four. You're live. Hello and welcome to another day in the Milky Way, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. And tonight we were going to have on WhichBetty, who was going to talk about all kinds of things, but she has left us and is not going to be on tonight. And I got my co-host, Grandpa Brian, but we are going to be talking about plants and stuff anyway, and more. So sorry about that. She was here, kind of canceled on me, and we'll just leave it at that. Um, so uh, anyway, Grandpa Brian, what do you got to say for yourself?
Been a really busy day for me today. I got about another 250 onions planted today, so that probably brings my total up to about 450 onions I planted.
Wow. Are you not afraid that it's gonna be winter yet?
No, uh, I think the coldest we've gotten in the past 4 weeks is probably 34 degrees, and
Oh,
the outlook for the next month is above normal temperatures, so I'm not too worried. Plus, onions kind of like it cool.
yeah. Well, that is true. I mean, I just can't. We're having a blizzard right now, and it's hard to imagine you planting a garden when the snow outside is coming down, and we got like 10 degrees outside when it's going to be colder than that by late night tonight. But the wind is blowing at like 40, 50 miles an hour out there. The snow drifts are terrible. Um, it's a big difference, and you're out in the garden planting. So,
Yep, and I got my greenhouse going at home. Probably got over 400 plants going right now, so be
well,
planting those probably in about 3 weeks.
well, I sure hope that you do not have a frost or a big freeze or a snow coming because I know about greenhouses, and if you get a little, they're not made for a ton of snow, and if we do get some kind of wacky winter weather, that could destroy everything.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
I've
So
already had wind rip it up out of the ground once.
yes, like I said, if you had a greenhouse here, 40 mile an hour winds. Well, actually, I'm sure there was more than that. Gusts. It was enough to shake my house. You could hear it come along and everything. Whoosh,
Wow.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. I want to say hello to everybody in the chat. We got Musgrave Griffin. Thank you for coming. Teresa is in the house. We have Chloe. No updates on Scotty Boy. Has anybody heard from Scotty Boy? Send him some healing energy. Somebody said he had maybe a heart attack or something. We got Synchro 9. Thank you for coming. Remeldian, Chief Remeldian Olympus. Thank you for coming. Let's see here. Who else do we got? And Lucky Stone, favor and grace and compassion to you all. Much favor, much favor. Linda Espinoza, thank you for coming. And sorry, we're not going to have our special guest on tonight, but we're going to have a Grandpa Brian on, and we're going to put on the best show that we can possibly put on. And we're going to talk about gardening and plants, edible plants at that. Regina Hutchinson, thank you for coming. Springtime greetings, Milky. Yeah, bring me some spring here because we're having a blizzard outside. Definitely a blizzard. Okay, so where do we want to begin? You started out, you got your garden, you got your onions in. I'm hoping that you take some pictures, and then when we get together, I'm hoping that Zigzagzilla and you can come on at a later date, and we can all share pictures of our starting of our garden, how our plants are growing, and we'll be able to share all of that with everybody else. Now,
Oh, I would love that.
yeah. So take some pictures, take lots of pictures, send them to me. I can put them up if you don't have the computer. If you don't know how to do that, that's fine. I'll run the show. um, let's see what else is there. Oh yeah, so tonight we want to touch on edible plants, because there's things going on in the world. Put it that way. And if we lose our food chain, what will you eat? And that's my biggest thought. What will I eat? What can I do to eat food? I mean, can I go out and eat the grass outside? I mean, I'm talking about if we get really hungry, where do you get your vitamins and minerals from? How can I survive? And put it that way. And not only just survive then, but now making my life better today, through natural remedies.
So I have a few books. One of them is Edible Wild Plants. The other one I have is Trees of Indiana. It's nice to know, I got walnuts that grow here. I can roast hickory nuts. I can roast acorns. So it's nice to know that's a lot of protein right there. I do know on this property I found wild spearmint. I have found ginseng on the property. Here in about 4 to 6 weeks, there's a mushroom that comes up in the spring called morels. Uh,
Yep,
there's
I've
a
heard of
couple
morels.
of different types of morels. I hunt them. And I'm sure if I was to go through this book, I know I have other vegetation on this property that I know if I had to, I could go and harvest and eat.
Yes, yeah, and
As
that
long
is
as I
a
can, long as I have my garden, as long as
yeah.
I can have my garden, I'll be good.
Well, and that's the thing. Now I
Have,
heard a lot of people. I never knew what a morel mushroom was. I probably seen morel mushrooms a bunch of times. Um, and here's a morel mushroom right here. Um, look at they get big. Look at that. That's a huge one. I never knew they got that big. Huh.
oh yes,
Wow, that's a whole meal right there.
yeah, probably one of the most delicious mushrooms you'll ever eat.
I've never had a
Those are,
morel.
yeah, so those are grays. The brownish colored ones, they call them yellows.
Okay.
That yellows, and then you have your blacks,
Black.
and those are the yeah, yeah, those are what they call blacks. Those are actually, if you can find those are a little bit meatier than the other
Really?
two varieties are. Yes, got a little
Okay.
thicker shell to them.
Huh. Wow. So that is cool. That is neat. That is very neat. I love mushrooms. We used to eat pine mushrooms when I was a kid. We'd go out by the stumps and we would pick those mushrooms because at a certain time of the year, if things were good and they looked kind of like this buttons. I think we call them buttons. Now, people, you got to be careful when you go out and you pick the mushrooms because not all mushrooms are the same. Yeah, this is what they look like. When I was a
Yep.
kid, that's what we would pick. We would pick those things, and the way I could tell that they were good was because the squirrels would eat on them, and if the squirrels could eat them, then they must be edible.
Yep.
Is that how you do it?
Uh, basically, I never really hunted mushrooms except for morels.
Uh-huh.
But
And
I do know
Yeah.
There's also a puffy white one that comes up in the fall. I've never ate them before. I've seen them. They said that they're edible, and I know we have bunches of them. That's probably
Oh,
that's probably it right there. The puff.
yeah. It's like a puffy one. Yeah, I remember these. You'd walk around and you'd see those, and you'd kick them, and they would, splatter all over the place. And then if they got old, then they would get like this puffy, powdery stuff, and you kick them, and they would, be puffy and poofy. Yeah, I didn't like those too much. I mean, I never ate them, but I've seen these mushrooms, Pacific Northwest ones. I see. Then this is where I get to the unfamiliar mushrooms because I don't know, what's good. Oh, hen of the woods. That was another mushroom that I had a friend that used to pick that mushroom all the time. It was the hen of the woods. Here, I'll get a picture of that one. Hen of the woods mushroom. Yes, and they would pick this thing. My buddy, he loved this hen of the woods all the time. And he said that was a good eating mushroom too, but I really wasn't sure how to cook it or eat it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I've seen those before on my trees.
Yeah. I mean, oops. Apparently you can go buy them. Come on, get back there. Uh, that's the thing with when you do the share thing, it screws you up when you try to click something. Anyway, yeah, they grow on the sides of trees or something. Yeah, and he would. I've seen these all over the place, but I was too afraid to pick them because I didn't know what they were or if you could eat them, or I didn't want to get sick and die either. But they were supposed to be really, really good. I mean,
Uh,
mushrooms are
I'm gonna
good
have
for
to
you.
try that this year. Oh yes,
Yeah,
they are.
yeah. You got a lot of woods around by you, don't you?
We have 81 acres here, and out of the 81 acres, probably 70 acres of it's wooded.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay. Yeah, mushrooms are good to eat. I mean, that's the thing about um, foraging, foraging in the woods. Lucky says, don't rely on squirrels. They can eat some mushrooms that are toxic to humans. Well, those mushrooms will make you high. I I don't know which mushrooms make me high either, so I don't know. I haven't eaten them. So anyway, you can eat it. The thing is if you're not used to eating a whole lot of mushrooms, remember we would cook them up, and when I was a kid, and we would make this giant pan full. By the time you cook it down, the pan would be heaping up, and it would cook down. There would be, just enough for a small couple spoonfuls on everybody's plate.
Wow.
So yeah, mushrooms on your pizza, Paradox Fossil says. Book 33. Hey, welcome. There is that mushroom coffee. Yes, there's mushroom coffee. There's mushroom mixes, powdery mushroom stuff. What is it? Relish mushrooms. I mean, but all these things can be found in a forest, out in the wild. Mushrooms pop up wherever. Never grew mushrooms at home, although there are kits you can buy to grow mushrooms at home. And those are probably safe. You know, yes, it says it's the newest fad. What else can you tell me about foraging in the woods? What have you foraged out of the woods?
The only thing that I've ever picked out of the woods beside morels has been ginseng.
Oh,
Uh,
ginseng.
yeah, a friend of mine went out and found a turkey tail, which is a certain type of mushroom that I'll talk about here in a second. So now that I know what it looks like, I'm definitely going to be going out and picking as much of this as I can.
Uh-huh.
Because turkey tail, it bolsters the immune system. It helps fight gastric cancer, breast cancer, colorectal cancer, and lung cancer. It also has benefits for the liver. It's a anti-detoxant and an anti-inflammatory. I hope I pronounce this right. The compounds that are in this: polysaccharopeptide and polysaccharochoroidide. It
You're
inhibits the
you're
growth
you're
of
you're
cancer
talking about
cells.
you're talking about the ginseng, right?
No, I'm talking about turkey tail mushrooms.
Oh, okay. Turkey tail mushrooms. Sorry. Uh, okay, go ahead.
And it also helps with blood pressure.
Oh, really? Wow. And this is what they
Yeah,
look like. Cool. Huh. I've seen these before. For sure. Sure.
yeah.
Yes.
That is a mushroom that you can make medicine out of.
Wow. And I'm sure there's some books to do that with. I mean, usually there's lots of, yeah, see here we got there's books, turkey tail capsules. Wow, yeah, you can buy them online. Mushrooms uh and turkey tail, yeah. Wow. Didn't know this. I never knew this. I've seen these on trees all the time.
Yes, and I didn't know that either. So now that I know that, you basically pick them, dry them out, and then you grind them up into a fine powder and encapsulate them.
Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, because sometimes those they have a bitter taste. Um,
Yes.
yeah, in capsules they're not so bad. But yeah, you eat them another way and it's kind of, yeah, it doesn't make you happy. Look here, turkey tail mushroom capsules. You can buy them at the store if you can't do it yourself. But see, this is where I suggest everybody buy a book of mushrooms and plants, that you can actually look up the stuff. A book that I have myself is this book. I suggest that people get, and it's The Magic and Medicine of Plants. It's actually the Reader's Digest version. It's a hardcover. You can get it on eBay. They're really cheap. That was like $6 or $7. Um, they got all the different plants in here too, and what they're good for, and how to use them, and which ones are bad and which ones are good. Um, and just like your books there, what book is that again? That edible plants again, and stuff that you have. Uh, Here, I'll
Yes.
blow. Yeah.
Edible
Yes.
edible wild plants.
Yes. I suggest that everybody go out and get themselves a book. Don't rely on a computer, because if your computer goes out, your phone goes out, you have a book with pictures to reference plants in the wild with, because a lot of plants can look like other plants, and that could kill you. And you have
Yep.
to know your plants. Um, but then again, if you were starving, or if you know these plants, they could help you out tremendously by, like dandelions. I always thought dandelions were the worst thing in the world. Got to get rid of those things. Dig them up. Kill them, kill them, kill them. You got to get rid of the dandelions. They're terrible, terrible, terrible. Little did I know that I could have been eating the leaves as a salad, picking the dandelions themselves and making tea out of them. That could be, the dandelion roots, drying them out, grinding them up, and making a tea that's beneficial for cancer, your stomach pains, everything. I mean, there's a lot of stuff with dandelions. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, and you can also make you some dandelion wine.
Yes, that is so true. And if I can find it in this book, I will read it out of here. But I don't know where it would be. Exotic plants? Nope. Um, wild, wallflower. But anyway, go on with your stuff. I'll keep looking for that if I can find dandelions. But there's
But another good mushroom for health-wise for you, they're called oyster mushrooms, and they're
oyster mushroom.
antioxidant, and they help with what causes diseases and cancer.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and this also helps the liver with its detoxification of our body.
Oh,
Also
really?
with the mushroom, yeah. Also with the oyster mushrooms that I found out this past week that it helps break down and clean up pollution.
Really? I
I'm
need
not
you to
gonna,
tell me
yeah,
about that story. With how do you know that a mushroom, this mushroom, can clean up pollution? There's an oyster mushroom, everybody. That's a blue oyster mushroom. Apparently, there's different varieties of these mushrooms. Ooh, look, here's a pink oyster mushroom. Look at that. That's pretty. But I was always told, oh, these mushrooms are bad. They'll kill you. Don't eat them. Don't touch them even. I'm kind of curious that these mushrooms are like protein of the wild, believe it or not. Look at you. This is one of those grow kits where you can buy the kit and grow your mushrooms right in your own home. So there you go.
yeah.
Uh,
So how I found out about the mushrooms and the ecosystem, uh, I know most of your viewers have heard about the train derailment in eastern Ohio about a month or so ago.
yep.
Well, they actually started bringing in contaminated soil from that state into my state where I live
Hmm.
at. So a gentleman, well, it's actually a young kid that meets with us on Wednesday night in my group, is getting people together. He found out the oysters mushroom will help clean up that soil that they brought in. So you can get a bunch of people together, start getting these oyster mushrooms, getting the spores, harvesting the spores from them, and then spreading them spores over the contaminated ground,
Hmm.
which has made me think mushrooms help rebuild an ecosystem.
Yeah.
A lot of people they look at mushrooms and they think, oh, it's just a fungus. They're responsible for a lot of our ecosystem. I think it was probably one of the first plants here on this planet and what helped create the ecosystem to allow other plants to grow. Whenever
Hmm.
you pick a mushroom, you basically break it off. You do not want to pull it out of the ground or anything like that because then you're removing that spore that's in that ground that's helping that ecosystem thrive. So you always break a mushroom off and leave the base of it into the ground.
Hmm. Um, yeah, we used to go out there with a pocket knife and chop them off at the base. I remember my dad telling me, don't pull them
Yep,
out because then they won't grow back. And you need them to grow
exactly.
back. And I do know that most mushrooms, if well, like we were talking about growing on trees and stuff, mushrooms would grow like in the pine forests where all the pine needles were laying on the ground, or they would grow on dead stumps, or they would grow in on the sides of old dead trees, things like that. Or they would grow in piles of cow poop in the middle of the field. So you're talking about a plant that thrives in the what would you call it, like the depletion of another animal or plant, right? Breaking it down.
True. just like I know the morel mushrooms, they are found by poplar trees, ash, and elm trees. And what it is, those roots actually produce the spores for those mushrooms.
Oh,
So
really?
plants, yeah.
Oh,
So I'm
wow.
kind of curious about some of these other mushrooms that are they being produced by certain types of plants because the roots are producing the spores for these mushrooms.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's just
Eh,
so true. That a symbiotic host, like, right?
correct.
Mm-hmm. Which is really cool because
Oh,
like you see that one like one animal will help another animal out kind of in some way that benefits it. You know what I'm saying? I like I like that. Like you said, it that one produces so the mushrooms break up the soil, then the tree has more nutrients. And but like you said, it's cleaning the soil. So whatever's in the soil that's bad is making the soil good again, renewing it for the next tree, or maybe the seeds of that tree, right?
so true. Uh, I never thought about it like that, but yes, I'm sure that's what they do. I'm curious about, like, when you were showing all the other tree mushrooms, are certain mushrooms associated with certain trees? That's something I would have to investigate to see. If that's the case, then it's another verification that the tree died, but that certain type of tree has spores that will produce these certain type of mushrooms.
Well, yeah, yeah, exactly. Or it attracts it well, like you see those birds that they stick around the cows. They're always there for the cows, but the cows don't seem to mind those types of birds. Or you know, I mean, it's just yeah, it's a symbiotic thing. Kind of like when you plant your garden. You can put winter wheat in or something and till it under, or could put peas in one year, which give the soil nitrogen, and then you plant something else the next year that grows even better. Right?
Yes, that's why they have to alternate like corn and soybean because corn takes so much out of the soil, and then the soybean actually replenishes the soil.
Yes. Yes, because the soybean gives off the nitrogen. See, I don't think there's a lot of people out there that really know why these farmers rotate the fields. I really don't think they do. It's kind of like the cow giving, milk. Where does it come from? People know about cows, but they see the milk in the store in a container and go, well, that's got to be where it comes from.
That could be. I know there's a farming community down south of me. Uh, how he rotates his is corn, soybean, and then winter wheat. Corn, soybean, winter wheat. So
Hmm.
he's actually rotating three crops through his fields instead of just two or just one.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And you want to get that winter wheat in there because that gives a good mulch to the soil. That because with the wheat product, you're really taking just the seed, and then the rest of the plant is turned under or laid on top to give the soil cover for the next bunch of seeds that you plant. Breakdown.
Correct.
You know, yeah. And whereas the soybean, it's the roots of the soybean that make the nitrogen because the roots go down quite a ways, and then they make that better soil from the roots. Whereas corn kind of sucks everything out. It, I don't think there's anything that the corn is pretty harsh. Takes a lot, doesn't give a lot back. I do know
Exactly.
now you're in Indiana. There's a lot of Amish people down there, right?
Oh, yes, there's a lot of Amish and Mennonite around the area where I'm at now.
Yes. And they tend to till the soil quite readily. They'll plow under their stuff and they'll spread the manure from the cows out onto the field. And I don't know if they have all organic, but you know, if they use a little fertilizer or not, I don't know. But I noticed when I lived around the Amish areas and associated with them quite a bit, that they spread the manure. They had great farms. Their corn grew just as good as a lot of the other farmers who fertilized with chemicals and had all that other stuff going on. It's just that they didn't have as big of a farm.
Yeah, I use a compost cow manure mix in my garden. I don't
Mm-hmm.
use any fertilizers. That to me, that's the best natural fertilizer you can use as a compost manure mix, whether it's cow manure, horse manure, uh, chicken manure.
Yep.
Is
Uh,
very good for because it's real rich in nitrogen.
yep. Um,
Another thing you can do is bat houses and collect the droppings from the bat. Those are bat guano is really rich in nitrogen.
yes. That is so true. You know, they used to, maybe they still do, wherever they would find caves, people would go in there to extract the bat guano, and because it was so rich and powerful, and you know, grew stuff really well.
Yeah, you have to watch with the bat guano because you don't want to burn your plants up and give them too much nitrogen. That's why I like letting my compost and manure set out for 5 or 6 months. Let it get some weather on it and let it break down a little bit more and
Mm.
kind of dilute a little bit because I don't want to burn my plants up.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. Well, the chicken manure. I put chicken manure on. I remember one year I raised a ton of chickens. I had a couple hundred chickens, and I was raising butcher chickens, and I had so much manure, and I had a manure spray. I went out on the field. This is when I was farming, and I went out on the field, and I had enough in that manure spreader to make one pass. So I made one pass, and all that grass out there was so green that year. That grass, the hay, or whatever I was doing, that chunk was so green and much taller than all the rest of the field.
Yeah, I tried the chicken manure and I liked it. My plants got big, but once I went to the compost manure mix, my plants done so much better. I had
Mhm.
8 foot tall tomato plants this past year with that mixture of the compost cow manure mix.
Mhm. Do you remember Mon Pot Kettle?
Yes.
Yes. I don't know if anybody else remembers Mon Pot Kettle, but I am gonna pull this up. Oops, I'm trying to find the one where Pa Kettle was out there planting corn with crowbar and the two Indian characters that were always on. You remember that? And Pa Kettle, he was out there planting corn with crowbar, and they would put what do I want to say? They would put fish. Oh, sorry. They would put fish in the hole where they were planting corn. They had fish. They would chop them up in pieces. And I know when I was a kid that people would go down by the river in the spring and they would catch tons of carp. They would fill up because there was no limit on carp, and carp grew really big. And they would fill up like a whole pickup box full of these carp. And what are they doing with so much carp? I bet you they were putting it on their corn crop or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Have you ever done that?
Fish is another one that's no, but I have heard of people doing that. Uh, not so much with vegetables as with cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
And what they would actually do is they would put the fish in a diaper,
Oh,
and that diaper would hold the nitrogen longer, and the roots would go down into the diaper, and the plants would just be humongous.
really? Wow. I never thought of that. That is pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Okay,
And
I'm gonna flash to Mon Pot Kettle because I don't know how many people have ever watched Mon Pot Kettle, but this is Pot Kettle and Crowbar, and I don't know who the other character guy is. But this is Crowbar here, and if you can see the scene there a little bit, that's part of the Mon Pot Kettle series. It's hilariously funny. If you, I ain't gonna play the sound because they'll get me on a strike on that. I don't want to strike, but it is kind of funny. If you want to know who Mon Pa Kettle are, Pa Kettle is hilarious, and his two characters, like I said, they were planning throwing the fish in there, and I always remembered that. And I always went, what are they doing? But back in the day, like you said, with the diaper thing and all these tricks were normal. These were normal things to do. Save your eggshells, crush them up, put them in the garden. It makes your tomato plants grow good. You know what I'm saying?
oh yeah, my compost pile, it has uh, eggshells.
Yep.
Any vegetable that was bad by the time I got back down here, I threw in there. All my vegetable clippings, I throw in this pile. All my ashes from my wood burner, I throw in
Yeah.
this pile. Ashes are good
Yeah, because
with fertilizing. You got to think,
what are the ashes that you're getting out of your what are the ashes?
uh, I mean, I know you look at forest fires,
Yeah.
it devastated forests, and then you go back a couple of years later, and because of all that charredness, it puts all this nutrients back into
Yeah.
the soil, and look
And
how green everything is at that point in time.
that's right, because when you take that piece of wood and you burn it down, you extract all of the what you call it um, water out of it, right? And when you extract all the
Correct.
water and you break it down, which is breaking it down, the thing that you're left with is all the minerals. All that powdery powder is the minerals that are left from that wood. When they get to the ground and the rain comes out, washes it back into the ground, that ground is rejuvenated with minerals. And like you said, for centuries, people used to burn wood, take their ashes out, spread them on the garden, and they would have wonderful gardens because they were full of minerals. What do we do today? Buy some fertilizer.
Now, someone came up with the idea of using chemicals to
Yes,
make plants grow instead of all natural products to make plants grow.
absolutely. Yeah. Ballot Brand is in the house tonight. Thank you for coming. He says, put your coffee grounds in your compost pile too. Spent coffee grounds. Have you ever done that?
No, I haven't, but I will give that a try.
I've heard of people doing that, mixing their coffee grounds, banana peels, all that kind of good stuff. Linda Espinoza says the animals love the smell of the fish emulsion. When I used it, they dug up the plants. Yeah, probably why you got a fence in your garden. Um, let's see. Susie Q says, I have all the kettle movies. So I'm not the only one. Uh, she says, eggshells crushed up, put around the base of the plant. keep the bugs from eating them. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Huh. Well, we're learning something tonight. Thank you, Linda. Let's see. I need to do, yeah, Elderberry says, yep, I need to do a burn. You can, yeah. Did you ever notice people, I'm sure they do it in your area, especially where they burn the ditches, or somebody will burn their grass in their yard. They'll start a fire and burn the yard. And then the next year, the grass is just as green as can be.
Oh, less time than that, about a month and a half, 2 months, because we have ornamental grass at home, and that grows about 5-6 foot tall.
Yeah.
I cut that down every year, and I just burn it like in a little patio campfire pit,
Mm-hmm.
and it would burn the grass in about a 4 foot radius all the way around that. And within a month, I got grass right back there again.
Yep. And nice and green too.
So basically, what it's doing, yep, it just burns the top of it, and then it releases nutrients back in the ground. The roots are still alive, and boom, they come right back up.
Yeah. You know, and in the days before, you know, the white man came, the Native Americans, they used to burn the prairies. They would literally have controlled burns of the prairies to make the grass grow back better. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, I believe that. Yep.
Yeah. Elderberry says, I have the litter from rabbit coffee grounds and eggshells, tilling it into the garden this year. So yeah, if you have rabbits, rabbit poop is really good. People collect that, and they would grow, I remember they would grow grass in there, and then they would till that all into, you know, they put wheat or whatever it is into that, and it would break the rabbit poop down a little bit, and then you'd throw it in the garden and till it up. Really good fertilizer, because have you ever used rabbit poop?
No, I have not, but I'm sure any animal that eats vegetation, their poo would be good for fertilizer.
Yeah, well, rabbit poo isn't like, you know, it's not very strong and wise where it'll burn your plants. So you can kind of put it on directly. It doesn't burn your plants. Whereas if you use like cow manure or horse manure and it's fresh, you have a tendency, the fresher it is, to burn, you know, too much fertilizer burning your plants if you don't break it up right. I remember, this is so funny, when I was a kid and we'd have the cow and I would muck out the stalls, and then I would put the poop in a giant pile outside of the pens, right? And I would pile this up. Oh my God, it was a mountain, huge mountain. And that would heat up. It would get really, really hot to the point where it'd steam, you know. And I remember wrapping an egg in tin foil and boiling basically an egg in this tin foil and cooking it and eating it, just for an experiment anyway. But as long as I wrapped it up in the tin foil, it was an egg, I put it in there, it got so hot it cooked the egg.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's because all that manure was breaking down and decomposing.
Yes, exactly.
That decomposition is what creates heat.
Yeah, isn't that something though? How you know, it decomposes and it gives off that heat. I mean, why can't we harness that to heat your house, right? Oh,
That's what I did in my first raised bed. The first 4 to 5 inches of it is nothing but wood chips, and then I threw dirt on top of it with my compost on top of that. So all that down underneath is decomposing, and it's actually heating the ground. So I'm looking for good results this year.
Nice. You know, I know somebody said, let's see, fresh. They're talking about, oh, who said this? Yep, I gotta let cow horse poo set for a year first. Yeah, Yeah, if you put it on. Deborah Sloan says that. Elderberry says if you have rabbits, you can sell the rabbit poop. And you could, if you get any kind of horse poop or cow poop or rabbit poop or whatever, you can make the tea out of it. You get like a 55-gallon drum or a big pot or something, put a spigot in the bottom, kind of, or whatever you have to do, and you run water in there, and it makes a tea out of it. And then you pour that on the plants, which isn't so hot to burn them, but it gives them lots of nutrition. That is something I know. Anyway, I looked up the dandelion. Remember we were talking about dandelion here earlier?
Yes.
And so I found it in the book here. And it says here, dandelion greens are edible, either as a salad or cooked, and furnish a rich source of vitamin A and C. The blossoms are made into wine and are dried, and the dried roots can be ground and roasted and brewed into a coffee-like beverage. The brew from the roots has been drunk as a tonic, and for the reputed diuretic effects that accounts for its common French name, piston bed. Dried dandelion leaves make a tea that is mildly a laxative, but the most notable medicinal use for the dandelion has been the treatment of liver ailments with a brew made from the roots. And says, much money has been spent on herbicides to remove this cheery flower from lawns and gardens, but the dandelion holds its own, producing seeds with or without pollination. I did not know that. And distributing them far and wide. In fact, the plant has many virtues. European settlers deliberately introduced it into the New World, where Native Americans quickly took it up. The Mohicans drank dandelion leaf tea as a tonic, while other Indians prepared a tea from the roots for whatever, heartburn, because the flowers have a long blooming season. Later settlers introduced the dandelion into the Midwest to provide food for bees. Now, see, I did not know that. Did you know that? That it's not native to America?
No, I did not.
Wow. We learned something tonight. Dandelions were not native to America. But anyway, yeah, I didn't know if that dandelion, but here's the thing, like it says, a lot of money has been spent on the herbicides. If you have dandelions in your yard and you want to pick and eat them, make sure that your neighbor isn't spraying his lawn and your lawn with herbicides to kill them, and then it gets on your plant and then you eat them. So basically, wash your stuff. Speaking of washing your stuff and getting the stuff, you know, now they said that thing, that spill over there was in Ohio. Are you getting any of that residual feedback from that? Is that affecting you any other way besides that they're bringing the dirt into Indiana?
No, that's real far east of me, and it is very, very, very rare that you get an easterly wind.
Okay.
So I've never worried about that affecting me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I was just wondering. I'm kind of curious. I was kind of curious. I'm thinking, well, you know, if the wind blows that way or doesn't blow that way, you know, you really don't know. But like I said, that's one of the most common plants. And can you believe it? They brung that all the way over from Europe so that they can infect the whole United States, so that the bees had something to pollinate with, and that they could use the you know, I mean, it was such a useful plant. Now, my question is how did it get from being a useful plant to being a weed?
Our government,
Yeah, probably.
just like, yeah, they hide. I mean, everything on this planet is here to either feed us or help us medically.
Yes. So if you need a
And
laxative, take some dandelion. Heartburn, take some dandelion. Yes, you could cure with that book you got in your hand right there. If you studied that book alone, that could feed you, heal you, and take care of you. Could it not?
oh, most definitely. What I do like about this book is it tells you, like, I don't know if you can see it or not, but see the little skulls on there? That those let you know that it's poisonous. Uh, Down here, you can see uh, their little, I think, believe teacups to let you know that you can make tinctures out of them or teas or whatever. So that's why I like this book. It's real helpful on how to identify the plants. It shows the picture of the plants, what's poisonous, what's not poisonous, what it's used for. I'm not really sure. Let me look if it tells you how to make the tinctures.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah, that'd be really helpful. Making tinctures.
yeah, it doesn't have anything in there how to make the teas or the tinctures out of it, but I'm sure you could find that information online.
Yep. Um, see, that's the thing. Most um yeah, Musgrave Griffin says, what book is that? Hold
Uh,
that up to the screen again.
Edible, yeah, edible wild plants, and it is by it's Peterson Field Guide.
There you go, right there. Perfect. All right. Okay. So anyway, yeah. And or like I got this book here. This is a really good book too. There are many books, regardless of which book you get, you got to start somewhere. If you're going to invest in something, if you go to Starbucks, now I don't know if anybody goes to Starbucks, Bucks, Starbucks, the coffee place. You ever buy one of those coffees? I've never have, but any coffee
No,
place, those things are so expensive. Do you know you could buy this book or that book for maybe one or two of those cups of coffee? And you could have a whole mess of stuff for free for the rest of your life that way. Now, I also know I've never had it, but I've been told that there are apps that you can get on your phone that you can like take a picture of the plant and that app will tell you what plant that is. Um, I don't remember what the app is called, but I'm sure somebody in the chat room knows what it is and will refresh my memory for us not too skilled at that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, I don't like Starbucks, says Musgrave Griffin. Yes, that's the thing. Regine Hutchinson, yeah, I think in time it would be participate. Oh yeah, 4-H. When I was a kid, we did 4-H. They had lots of books you could get too for little next to no money, or they would give you it for free because it was 4-H, and they would participate in food fairs, share fun skits. Yeah, so stuff like that. Yeah, 4-H is a great thing. If you got kids or have kids or something, 4-H is great to participate. Besides that, even if you're not in 4-H, you're old, donate some time telling these young whippersnapper kids about stuff like this. If you learn that book that Grandpa Brian's got in his hand, you could go out and teach people stuff. And that's what it really boils down
yeah.
to.
And another book that I like that kind of goes with this one right here, it is called Survival Hacks, and it basically will teach you how to use everyday things to help you survive in the wilderness. Shows you how to build shelters, food, water, your health. It is a really good book to have to go along with the Because if you ever find yourself out in the wilderness and, you barely have anything to survive with, knowing some of the knowledge that's in this book will help you start a fire, water, and then,
Yeah,
boom, right there. You find your wild edible stuff, and now you're able to cook you whatever you need out in the wild.
absolutely. Good
Another
books to
good,
have.
yeah,
There's the now I'm not saying that those are great books to have, and I have several of those because they come in really handy. I have this book here. It's No Grid Survival Projects. It tells you things that you can
yeah,
do around your house too. How to
yeah.
survive off the grid. Yes, there you go. You got it going on, man. I love it. You and me think alike, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
But you
See,
have to know how to survive in case, shit hits the fan.
yes. And like this book here, I should really look at it more, but it tells you everything like how to purify water, and I'm sure that book does too. It tells you how to build a chicken greenhouse, make a raised bed, how to make a smokehouse, because if you want to preserve some meat for later, if you were, not see the thing is everybody says, oh, I'm going to have to bug out, but I want to tell people that bugging out is a great idea. Not really, because your house is your castle. And if you have to leave your castle, you may not do or fend so well living in the woods, especially during temperature changes or things that you really need. I mean, I hate to say it, but most people are in the nice comfort zone where they don't know how to be out in the woods for days at a time. They want warm, climate controlled temperatures. If it's snowing and cold out, you want to stay in your house. Hey, I'm right there with you, people. I don't want to go out and live outside in this cold weather. If I absolutely had to, yeah, but it doesn't thrill me. I'd rather be in my house, and this is my castle. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do. Uh, but I have done stuff like I slept out next to a campfire and it got down to 22 degrees that night.
Yes.
So I know how to survive on a cold night outside if I have to.
Yes.
I've done
That.
stupid stuff like that on and off throughout my life, and I know how to be able to survive if something should happen, and I have to survive a couple days out in the wilderness away from my castle.
Yes. Yes. And that is the thing. If you can survive out there, and remember, food, water, and shelter. Those are your three main components. And like you said, wouldn't you rather? I see you got that wood stove going back there behind you. To survive in your own
Yeah,
castle with the wood stove keeping you warm versus sleeping beside that campfire all night with the smoke blowing in your face and the heat radiating up into the wilderness versus radiating out and keeping you really warm in 22 degrees.
well, I was smart about that because the wind was coming out of the north, so I actually slept on the south side of the fire. So when that wind was coming across, it was actually blowing the heat towards me. So I
Yes.
actually stayed pretty warm that night.
Yeah. And those are little tricks that you could learn. But like I said, for the most part, people, I tell you what, if you think you're going to pack up your bug out bag and run out into the woods, live out there off the land, trust me, it's not going to be a fun day. The first day might be great. Second day might be a little harder. The time you get to the third and fourth day, you're going to wishing for a hot shower. You're going to be thinking of a nice hot meal. You're going to be thinking about where do I wash my hands or sit down? Now, I've been out to the wilderness, 20 miles in the middle of nowhere. You know what? The one thing I missed, Grandpa Brian, where do you think I missed the most? What do you think was the most important thing I missed? This will blow your
A
mind.
hot shower.
No.
A hot shower.
No.
Toilet paper.
Nope. Had that with. I had a hot shower. I had a solar bag, and I heated up water, and I took myself a nice shower. I had toilet paper and handy wipes. So that wasn't too big of an issue. I'll tell you what my big issue was. Having a flat spot to sit or lie down on, or to place my utensils on, or when I cooked something, to put my things on, because there's nothing flat. There's nothing flat. Go out in the woods, a log is round. You know, you can set stuff up there, or you sit down on a log. It's just not that comfortable. You know, for a little while, it's fun. You can straddle it, you can sit on it, but it's hard. There's no place good to sit. There's no place good to lay down. You know, that was the worst. Just think about it.
Yeah. And laying down on the ground's probably not fun either, because then you start getting bugs crawling all over you. But hey, there's your protein if you need it.
Well, the thing is the ground is cold. I had a little pad, but either your feet are higher, or your head is lower, your head's higher and your feet are lower, or you're on the side of a hill where you finally find a flat spot, but then the hill's like this, and now you're constantly wanting to fall down the hill. You know what I'm saying? To find a good flat spot is actually really hard.
And depending on where you're at, it could be.
Yeah,
I'm sure if you were in Oklahoma, Texas, Nebraska, where you have a lot of flat land, I'm sure you could find plenty of flat area to lay down.
Well, and that's the thing. Even when there is flat land, to the eye, it is flat. But when you get onto the ground, it's really not flat. You know what I'm saying? And you get right there, it's not flat. There's rocks, there's this, there's that. It might be, the ground isn't perfectly level because somebody plowed it and scraped it down. So, even when I set up my tent in places, the best place I actually found to camp, though, was like on a beach where the sand was soft. And then, it didn't kind of matter. It was kind of flat and soft, and you didn't, it was just different. It was better. That was the best place, a good sandy spot. Whereas everywhere else was terrible. There was no place to sit, nothing flat. I missed that. So next time I go, I'm bringing a chair and a table.
Now, I have a queen size air mattress that's about 2.5 foot tall when it's completely blowing up. So,
yeah. Well, I'm talking about roughing it camping, man. Talking about going out there and roughing it, where I bring the little roll-up mattress. I got one of those little, things. It's about as big as a baseball, and you roll it up into this little ball kind of thing. And then when you stretch it all out, you blow it up, and then it's this big mattress, and it keeps you up off the ground so you don't get cold. But it's still hard. But I'm talking about camping where you're trying to conserve weight. I mean, sure, you can get that big canvas tent and the wood stove in there, and a big blow up mattress. My buddy had one of those big army tents with the big pole in the middle. You stick up like that, and oh man, I helped him set that up a number of times, and that's a great tent. And he had a big blow up mattress in it with a little pump thing, and hook it up, and and we'd go down to the river, and he had a bilge pump, and he'd throw that in and hook it up to a battery. He had one of those little batteries and the bilge pump, and then he'd pump the water into a big thing, and then take it back to the campsite with a 4-wheeler or something. And I'm thinking, wow, this is really cool. This is camping. And then when you go out camping and roughing it into the middle of nowhere, You don't have all those things. You can't carry a bilge pump. You can't carry the queen size blow up bed. Weighs too much.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's something to experience though, isn't it though? Sleeping by a campfire.
Yes. There was another time I slept by a campfire. We were actually in Sandusky, Ohio, camping out right next to Lake Erie.
Mm-hmm.
I woke up at about 2:30 in the morning and it was pouring down raining on me. So at that point in time, it's just basically crawl in the front of the car and go back to sleep and dry out in the morning.
Yeah. Well, and see, that's another thing. People don't realize when you're out there, if you bug out and you go out into the woods, you're at the mercy of the elements. It could rain on you. It could be really hot. It could snow. Whatever the element is, especially rain. Rain is the worst because then it gets you soaking wet. And where are you gonna, if you didn't have that car to dry out in, what would you do?
Uh, I probably would have froze that night because I was soaked
Yes.
and my blankets and everything else was soaked.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point, and you get soaked. And once you're soaked and you're wet, try to start a fire. Your fire, all your wood is wet and it smokes and it doesn't burn. And then how are you going to get dry? I mean, it's one thing. And then next thing you know, you got hypothermia and you're dying.
You know,
Yeah.
you just better hope the next day's warm and the sun's going to be out to dry stuff out for you.
Yes. Susie Q says a tarp is a must. Yes. If you can carry a tarp with you or one of those space blankets, get a couple of them. They're like $1. You could stretch that over some make yourself a teepee type thing, stretch that stuff up, at least keep the rain off of you. Put some branches up, put it in a rock, stretch it over you. At least you could stay dry. And that's the biggest thing, staying dry, having a good sleeping bag, regardless if you're sitting by the campfire or in a tent. That's always a plus. But there's certain things, if you're going to bug out, that you should have. But bugging in, I think, is the best. And when you're bugging in, like yourself there, you got your wood stove. You don't need electricity for that. You got plants outside that you could harvest. You could scrape a bark off of trees and grind that up and eat it. Pine needle tea is good for you. You know, there's all kinds of things that you could do. Grind up nuts, acorns. The Native Americans used to grind up acorns and make it into a flour. Speaking of that, I was listening to I was doing some research on the Blackfeet Indians, and these two guys were at this reservation and they were getting to the grand tour, and they were watching some lady make Indian fry bread, right? And they
Uh-huh.
were like, "Oh yeah, this Indian fry bread's really easy to make," and da 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 da. And I got to thinking, is Indian fry bread a native food?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't
No,
think I've ever had it.
it wouldn't be a native food. Why? Because they didn't have flour, they didn't have wheat, they had corn. So more than likely, they would have made a corn type flatbread because they made stuff like pemmican, and they lived off of pemmican, which is berries, lard, and meat boiled or cooked together and made into little bars that you can eat. They're not really great, but they're edible, and that's what they used to eat a lot of. I read some stuff about when the Indians would get put on the reservation that when they were put there, the military, the government, whatever, would come in and they would give them rations, supplies. but they would give them white man supplies, coffee, sugar, flour, you know, those beans, things like that, right? They give them a cow. Well, a buffalo is not a cow. I mean, different type of meat being, different type of meat.
Yep.
And flour, they weren't used to flour. They weren't used to coffee or sugar. They didn't have sugar. And so that was a rarity. And they got awful godly sick for several months or so until they adjusted their bodies to white man food. And I think that's where they came up with the fry bread because, they just had flour and the best. Fry bread is real easy to make. Basically, it's a unleavened bread. You take it, you put some, you can fry it in a pan. I should share a recipe with you. And it's very simple to make. You take the the flour, you mix it with some water, you knead it down, you mix maybe a little butter in there, maybe lard or whatever with that dough. You mix it up, and then you let it set for a while, and then you take it out and you smash it up. You roll a little golf ball size piece, and you roll it up, smush it together, and then you got a pan with some grease or whatever or something, and you fry it. Just fry it, flip it over, fry it both sides, and that's it. And you eat it. It lasts for days and days in my fridge. And when I make it, and I can put a little jelly on it, sometimes people put powdered sugar on it or something like that. But that's all there's to it. It's real simple.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll send you a recipe.
I'll have to try that.
Yeah, very simple. You can look it up on YouTube too. They have multiple videos on how to make the fry bread, and it's like I said, it's a very simple process. Pretty good to eat. Doesn't take much flour. A cup of flour will stretch a long, long way. And then if you had some kind of other meat or something like that, you could put that in there and make a sandwich out of it, really. So it's pretty cool.
That's
pretty
interesting.
Cool. Yeah. So anyway, Musgrave Griffin says maple syrup. Yes, but not everybody had maple trees. That was like in your neck of the woods. You got a lot of maple trees up that area, don't you?
Yes, I've seen one or two on the property.
Mm-hmm.
But those are basically the only ones I've seen.
Oh, okay. Well, maple trees love a lot of water. I know when I lived in Wisconsin, you'd find all the maple trees down in the swamp area, in the sloughs, the swamps, up in the hills where there's a lot of water, a lot of good dirt. And then they grow. When you find one, there's usually hundreds around it. And very good tree, grows real good. I got a buddy who makes some maple syrup himself, boils it down. He's got all the facilities. He sent me a couple bottles last year. It was awful nice of him. Big shout out to Rick, who's making that maple syrup, probably tapping the trees as we speak. But maple syrup, yes, but you gotta get a lot of sap, and then you have to boil it down for hours and hours and hours and hours to evaporate the water and get the sugar out. It's a big process. It takes a lot of work. It isn't something you could do overnight either. So
I think I'd rather raise bees and get honey.
That's true. You got to do what you can do. Like my buddy, he's got tons of maple trees in his backyard. He lives down by he's kind of in the hills area by a swampy area, and he's got tons and tons of maple trees. He just goes out and taps the trees, and they're right there. And Mary Wynn says apple fritters. Yeah, and Musgrave Griffin says my family is from Canada, had maple trees. Yes, maple trees. Deborah Sloan says dandelion root tea. Yes, but anyway, those are things. There's a lot of things in the history that they did, but in certain areas, people do certain things. you know, whatever you have for your surroundings. Make the best of it. That's all I can say. Know your area.
Yep. And do you have a lot of thickets up around your area?
Yes, yes, a lot of bushes, not many trees, but a lot of bush and thicket stuff. Yes.
Do you have a lot of wild blackberries up there?
No, 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 no. Don't have a lot of that.
I'm surprised with thicket. You know, we do here in Indiana. We have a lot of them here on the property. Wild blackberries.
Ah,
I could probably pick about a gallon and a half to 2 gallons of wild blackberries a year here.
wow. Yeah, that we don't have in here where I am, there's not much of anything. I mean, being the plains, it's pretty barren. And when you do find thickets, they're usually thorny, bushy thickets that you don't want to go in there because it'll scrape your skin, poke you in the eye. It'll poke. I've had to go in there and do stuff a couple of times because the long story, dog ran in there and I had to go in. Man, I tell you what, I come out of there, it looked like I went through the grinder. You know, my shirt was tore, my hands were poked, got poked in the leg and the arm. I'm lucky I didn't poke my eye out. Yeah. Yes, not fun.
Because the wild blackberries do grow on thorn bushes or sticker bushes, whatever you want to call them. And I know all about that. I've had many of pokies reaching in there to grab a handful of wild blackberries.
Yes. Oh, I love blackberries. Love blackberries. Mary Wynn says, Robert, you should tell your story of when you raised bees. Did you ever raise bees?
No.
Oh, you should try it. It's a lot of fun. It's this is about the season where you should be able to order your bees and get your stuff. And you're pretty handy with carpentry work. You could make your own bee boxes. They're really easy. They're really easy to make. You don't have to buy the $150 box at Farm and Fleet or something. Just make your own. You know, you could raise bees.
Uh-huh.
It's not that hard. Buy yourself a queen and you know, I forget what it is, 3,000 bees and a queen, and it's pretty easy. Bees aren't bad. Honeybees are pretty good, except when you don't when you're doing it for the first time. And I'll tell you the story because Mary Wins wants to hear the bee story. So I studied up on bees. I even went to a bee class, learned all about raising bees, ordered my bees, bought a box, take it out, set it up on this nice little hill. There's a big pasture out in front that's going to have tons of clover, you know, and I got this bees and they're in a little box about yay big, you know, just little box. And there's like a tin can in this box that has some sweet, sugary, syrupy stuff or something for the bees to eat while they're being transported, right? And there's thousands of bees in this little box buzzing around. They're fairly loud. And there's a queen inside. She's in a little bitty box, like a little bitty cage inside that box, right? So all the bees are swarming around her in this box. And they're all alive and they're really loud. And I get my box and I'm all happy. And I get up to the box. I got my bee box ready. Now I've learned that you have to take sugar water. So I had a spray bottle with sugar water in it. And in this bottle, I'm told that you're supposed to spray the bee box. So I spray the bee box. And then you're supposed to be able to, you got to spray, you know, the bees. You spray the bees and then they lick themselves, you know, like, ooh, you know, here's sweet stuff. And then you're going to open the box up. And then you're going to reach in and get that little queen bee out of there, which they put it on a little thing. And you can open it and you take that queen out, right? And then you put her in the bee box. And then you spray it some more. And then you take the bees and you dump them into the box. Well, the bees don't really want to come out of that box because they're in that box. So you're doing this. Well, here's my problem. This is what I did wrong. First off, I didn't have a bee suit. Well, I wasn't going to invest in a bee suit. I went to the class. Some of those guys weren't wearing bee suits, and all I got to do is knock the bees out of there. I'll put on a stocking cap or something. And I didn't. It was warm that day, so I didn't. I put some big gloves on because I didn't want to get stung by the bees on my hands. And I went there and I had to spray the bottle. Spraying, it was windy day. It was a windy day. So when I was spraying that bottle with all the sugar water in it, it was getting all over me while I was spraying. Now I am covered in sugary, watery stuff. And of course, I don't know it. I'm just spraying away. And the wind's blowing and I'm spraying more. I'm like, well, I'm good. I'm knocking these bees out, which is riling the bees. And the bees are like, I'm pissed off. You're knocking me out of this box. Where's my queen? Well, they're flying. They're swarming. No problem. I'm doing the thing. Bees aren't biting me. They're crawling up my arms, whatever. You've seen those pictures on TV and stuff where the bees are. I didn't mind that. I'm still shaking the bees out. I'm like, this is pretty cool. My buddy's standing back about 20 feet from me, watching me. I wish he would have had a video camera. But this was in the days before the video cameras. And I get the bees all out of the box. And they're swarming on me. And the one thing they did, that one crawls into my ear. In my ear. And another one. And they're in my hair. They start coming up in my hair. And I could feel them walking around. Didn't bother me. Now, one in my ear, he was driving me nuts. I couldn't handle the bee in my ear. Just was making me crazy. So I'm trying to get him out of my ear. Of course, I'm slapping him and I'm shaking my head. Well, this isn't making the bees happy at all. Now the bees are crawling in my hair because all the sugar water is in my hair. It's on my coat. It's on my head. The bee is in my ear, man. I got bees in both ears. I'm going crazy. I couldn't handle it. I've started swatting the bees, and that's the one thing you shouldn't do is swat the bees. You don't want to kill a bee, because if you kill a bee, he lets off a pheromone or hormone or something he does, and it tells all the other bees, sting this person, sting this thing right here. He killed me. I'm dying. Come here and sting, sting, sting. You know why bees don't normally sting you unless you're a threat? You know that? Do you know they don't?
Because they lose their stinger.
Yes, and then they die.
The only ones that lose their stingers. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they die. They don't want to kill themselves unless they have to. But I became a threat. And the next thing you know, I'm trying to get them out of my ears, and I take off a run, and I'm running my hands through my hair like this. I'm going, get out! And I'm running, and the bees are stinging, and I'm running, and the bees are stinging. I probably got bit about 5 or 10 times on top of my head, in my hair, on my head, so my head feels like it's throbbing like this all day long. I must have had a huge head. I didn't get stung in my ear, though. I didn't get stung anywhere else. The only problem was I had to get the bees into the box yet, and I had to get brave enough to go back and finish my job. And I did. I put the gloves back on. I got the bees stung all in my head swelling. It's pounding. I went back and I knocked the bees out of the box, put the cover on, and there we go. It was crazy. It was crazy. Mary Wins, that one was for you. So,
wow, that sounds like an adventure.
Yes. Whatever you do, make sure you put something over your ears, like some earmuffs, and put some glasses on so they don't sting you in your eyes. Just don't open your mouth and you will be fine. And don't spray the sugar water upwind because it gets all over you. Now, if anybody raises bees out there, they're probably laughing their asses about over this because, yeah, in the gardens. Yes, you know, that's, yeah. But anyway, okay, we should wrap this up. Everybody should go over to Max Vision. He's over there doing a remote view. So go check him out. Tomorrow night, I will be on Sunday Live with Nina the Mystic. We will be doing spiritual science. So check me out there. So no show on Milky Way tomorrow night because I will be over at on Nina's channel. So check us out over there. We'll be doing spiritual science, which is this book right here. If you want to learn more about that. Thank you, Grandpa Brian, for coming. Thank you, everybody in the chat room
for having me.
Oh yes, I appreciate every time you come on. Zareth showed up. Thank you, Steve. Anyway, Mary Wins, Susie Q, Deborah Sloan, Regine Hutchelson. Thank you all for sticking around and participating in the chat. Lucky Stone, all you good people that came and listened to my crazy stories and Grandpa Brian's crazy adventures of sitting by the campfire and getting rained on. We all learned something from it tonight too. But like we talked about, get that book Grandpa Brian's got or the one that I got or any book. Yes, Edible Wild Plants. Yes, any book will do. Do a little research, buy the best one that fits you. There are books for your area too. So that could be a thing. Let's see. Zareth's still on Odyssey. I'm still on Odyssey. Yes. Okay, great. Yes. Odyssey is great. I upload all the videos to Odyssey too. Let's see what else we got going on. Don't forget about Tuesday night, Native American Myths and Legends, and we'll be bringing you some great shows the rest of the week too. I'm off of my vacation break, and I am doing my thing again. So with that, Grandpa Brian, thank you for coming on again tonight. We will be back.
Thank you for having me.
More gardening. Take some of those pictures, right?
Yes, I will.
Because I'll take pictures of my garden right now, but it's under like 2 foot of snow. Yes, not quite the same. But anyway, go over to Max Vision, catch him over there. I know I'm going to try to head over there and do a little remote viewing. Remote viewing is a lot of fun. So remember, go out, be the frequency you want to receive, everyone. I love y'all. Peace, everybody.